Welcome to the Offer Mojo Show. We have another episode where we're going to be talking about a different way of marketing and selling our offers. In this episode, we are going to explore how entrepreneurs can use their speaking as their most profitable marketing strategy with no big following, no fancy funnels, no paid ads. That's what I like. But here's the twist, and this is what I love. This isn't just about keynote stages or being a professional speaker, because I know a lot of us, we don't want to be like known as a professional speaker. It's about maximizing every opportunity to use your voice, whether it's a podcast like this one, a webinar, a Zoom call, a masterclass, or even a short video on social media. I know videos can make people cringe, but we're going to talk about how effective they are. Because when there's a clear, repeatable framework behind your words, visibility finally starts translating into income. We're also going to uncover a surprising truth. Most entrepreneurs are unknowingly being held back by hidden bottlenecks in their business. Issues they rarely think to question, but that quietly limit their growth. Our guest specializes in spotting these blind spots and helping entrepreneurs unlock momentum they didn't know they were missing. I'm excited about that. I know what one of my bottlenecks is, at least, and we might get into that today, but I'm excited about this as well. So I want to introduce our speaker today. It's Tiffany Armstrong. I met Tiffany, oh my gosh, like maybe, how long has it been? Like 2 months, 3 months ago, something like that. She reached out to me to speak on offers and creating a hole-in-one offer on her Entrepreneur Visibility Summit. We hit it off immediately. We are so aligned on the way we think about business, the way we approach business, the types of people that we love to work with. And so for me, it was only natural for me to invite her to my podcast. But I do want to give a formal introduction. Tiffany Armstrong is an internationally recognized speaker, business bottleneck strategist, never heard of that, speaking coach, and the creator of the Profitable Talk Framework and the Business Bottleneck Assessment. Through her Profitable Talk Framework, she helps entrepreneurs maximize and convert every presentation they give, whether it's on a stage, in a masterclass, on a podcast, or social media videos. With her Business Bottleneck Assessment, she's known for her uncanny ability to diagnose what's not working and help entrepreneurs identify and fix the unseen roadblocks that are silently blocking their success. With over 2 decades of experience speaking on global stages and training thousands of entrepreneurs, Tiffany blends strategic clarity with heart-led leadership. She's known as the Sidearm CEO because she treats her clients' businesses with the same care that she treats her own, which is why we get along. Business success doesn't have to be complicated. When you focus on what truly moves the needle, everything changes, because success isn't just about what you build. It's about who you become along the way. Lead with purpose, and doors open, lives change, and the world shifts in ways you never imagined. Welcome, 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 Tiffany, to the Offer Mojo Show. I'm so glad that you're here, and I know that we are going to have an amazing conversation.
That is true. It's absolutely true. I love it. Thank you so much for having me. I just love what you stand for in this world, and it's an absolute honor to partner with you in this. I appreciate you.
Yeah. So I wanted to start by saying that when I had my first business, I'm a 2-time entrepreneur. And when I had my first business, I had no idea how I was going to get clients. I just knew I was a certified coach, and I just knew I wanted clients. And the first thing that I ever did is I ran an ad in a local newspaper. Yeah, like that existed back then when I became certified. And I did get one client out of it. But I quickly learned, oh my God, this is not going to work. I can't just run ads and just hope, where am I going to find clients? So I got this idea that I would try speaking, and I would like host a workshop at like a local gym and do like, do a talk. I had never done public speaking in my life. And 5 people showed up to the workshop, and I was scared out of my mind. Like, I was so nervous. Like, I'm literally shaking inside. But I also learned not only could I get through a presentation, but it was not going to be sustainable for me to try and bring in an audience to a place. So I started going where audiences were. I was coaching moms, and I started pitching to local MOPS groups, mothers of preschoolers. And I just started speaking at churches, like all over. And that was the way I brought in clients. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to you, because speaking is big. And you're right. Like, speaking has evolved like so much. Like, the pandemic obviously like just kind of like put a kibosh on all that in-person speaking, and we went virtual. Let's first, I want to hear your take on like what makes speaking so powerful for visibility and like bringing traffic to your website, your offers, and so forth.
Absolutely. Love that question. First of all, I can relate to you having fear of speaking at the beginning. I think
Mhm.
most people, I'm going to say there's probably about 10% of people who are like, no, I just love speaking right from the
Right.
start, but that's very rare. And I used to faint. I literally would faint on a stage and walk up to the facilitator in front of 500 people, just slapping me on the face. So I'm just putting that out there for anybody who has that fear.
Wow.
Lori and I can be speaking in front of people nowadays. You can too. So that's just a matter of really getting grounded in your body, but also having a structure to your talks. But as far as your question goes, the speaking it is different because it's a positioning thing. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about positioning. So when we're on social media, tend to blend in with the crowd. There's so much chaos. People go to social media typically for entertainment or to
Mm-hmm.
learn something or for education. So a lot of times you're just kind of falling into the crowd in social media. And of course, there are ways to stand out. And that's one of the things like with what you do with offers, like how do you make your offer stand out? So with speaking, first of all, when people arrive, whether it's virtually or in person to your talk, whether you're speaking in somebody else's audiences or your own, you're positioned as the expert already because you're sitting there and they are there specifically to hear you speak. And
Right.
so I work with a lot of network marketers, for example, and they're at vendor events and they're sitting there and people are just coming to their table and grabbing all their free stuff and not really there to see them. When you are
Right.
actually a speaker, you are positioned as the expert. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's truly just a positioning thing. And so it's interesting. And we've all seen people either on social media who speak well and really speak to our hearts, or other speakers where we just feel like we know them. We haven't met them, but we feel
Mm-hmm.
like we know them. We understand their morals and values because they're speaking that through what their topic is. They're just kind of weaving in who they are.
Mm-hmm.
We could sit as observers then and think, you know what, I really feel connected to this person and they're offering a solution to a problem I'm struggling with, kind of thing. So all that to say, it really is a positioning thing more than anything. And all the noises shut out when you're giving a talk of some sort, any sort of presentation. All the noises is pushed out and they're looking at you to the expert. So anyway, it really is more of a positioning thing than anything.
Yeah. And I think what I would add to that is it's a trust builder.
Absolutely.
In a world of a lot of AI generated content, how to things, all of that kind of stuff, like, to actually hear someone speak live and to get a feel for their personality, like you said, their values, their expertise, it's like, oh, this is actually a real person that
Mhm.
I can trust. This is not like an AI robot talking to me and
As
telling me how to run my business or how to run my life or whatever, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say in the world of AI, so much has become less and less personal. And that's actually, I just emailed one of my clients yesterday just about how I don't put on a business hat and a personal hat. I mean, I just truly show up as I am in business. I love as hard as I give direct truths, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much to be said about when you are sitting in an audience and a speaker is speaking at your value, like really relating to you on your values, but also giving you some paradigm shifts, things that you've always thought this way, and they have you thinking like, gosh, I've never considered that. That
Mm-hmm.
is where you start to become very valuable in their minds. And so, yeah, I just could not agree more with you on the fact that we get to know that person on a soul level, as long as we're speaking from our hearts as
Right.
speakers. If we're
Yes.
going in and putting on our business hat and like, I am the guru and I'm going to impart my wisdom, people will not connect with you. Please don't be that person. Just be yourself,
Yes.
the professional version of yourself, right? We all have that in us. So I love that. That's one thing I love
Yes.
about you is that you just show up real. You're just real as can be. And that's one of my favorite things about you.
Likewise. It takes
Thank
one to
you.
know one, right?
Well, thank you. Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's just say people okay, they get it. I'm sure they get it that it's, speaking is important for, for visibility, for positioning, for trust, all of that. But speaking is honestly a little bit more, I guess, challenging. And there is, I think, a very specific way in which we need to show up and very specific way in which we need to position ourselves. And I think one of the questions that I had is you had said that many entrepreneurs unknowingly are losing 75% of their audience when they speak. Why? Like, tell me what it is. What are they doing, or what am I doing for that matter, that's losing the audience?
This is one of my absolute favorite topics to speak on because this very, very simple concept has brought people thousands and thousands of dollars extra because once they understand this, they're never going to do a discovery call the same. They're never going to do any type of social media videos the same, and obviously any sort of speaking. So what is happening is there are different personalities out there. That's just the reality. And there's a whole bunch of personality tests out there. So whatever ones you lean into, just use that as your reference point. But the ones I use for specifically speaking for entrepreneurs, we call them feelers. There's the feelers of the world. Right. And I'm
Okay.
going to explain a little bit more about this. There's the doers. Okay. There's the
Mm-hmm.
dreamers and there's the thinkers. So if I am naturally a very analytical person, that's just
Mm-hmm.
how I function. That's what makes me good at what I do. But my
Mm-hmm.
analytical side is I'm a thinker. And so I don't typically fully trust a speaker until they give me some sort of grounded proof, statistics, some research, whatever it may be. And so if a feeler is speaking, and I've learned to speak the language of all four, and that's the power of being an entrepreneur. It's almost like speaking four different languages. We're
Mm-hmm.
always going to speak from our dominant position, right? We're going to speak from our own personality type, kind of like the 5 love languages. We show love
Yes.
and we tend to like to receive love, but that's not always how somebody else likes to receive it, right? So many people I've seen, like a thinker, for example, get up on stage and just give analytical, and they lose the dreamers and the feelers because they need stories. They need a vision to believe in. The doers want to do items. So let me just go through them real quick. Feelers love
Okay.
stories. They love the heartfelt piece of everything. They love the connection, everything like that. They love that there's a mission behind it. Same thing for the dreamers. They love the mission. They need to believe in a bigger purpose. They love to join movements, whatever it is. Doers love to do items. So if you are
Okay.
giving a whole talk and you don't wrap it up in a summary of bullet points for them at the end, they're going to say, what am I supposed to do here? And they'll actually feel very frustrated, right? And I'm a doer too. And then the analytical people. So for example, let's say you're a thinker sitting in the crowd and you are analytical and you see a feeler coming up. If they're just telling story after story, as much as I love stories, because I really lean in, anybody who likes movies likes stories, right? We all have that side of us. But for the thinker in the audience, they're going to say, yeah, this is hogwash until they actually feel it. What's so important is I have a framework to a talk. I know we'll get into that, but in the framework of the talk, what we do after we write the framework is we go in and we say, okay, these 3 content points, how can I say one of these in a way that lands for the feelers? Okay, my next content point, how can I say this point that will really land for the thinkers? And even like the hook at the beginning, we want to make sure, we're really like, whoever your audience is, you're going to kind of know this is the majority of thinkers, or a lot of people in this audience are feelers. So you're going to want to start your hook at the beginning, really speaking to that audience. So you just want to make sure when you set your talk up to go back and make sure you have something in for all of the different personality types. Otherwise, you really will lose 3/4 of the audience and they will not buy it.
That's really cool. It kind of reminds me of when I'm working with clients and I'm like taking them through like my aligned offer accelerator. Everybody learns differently.
Yes.
I'm such a like visual learner. Like please don't give me something auditory. Like, I honestly cannot like comprehend it. My spouse will say, here, listen, listen to this. And it's just like, I can't understand it. I don't know what it is.
That way.
Yeah, I need to see it. Let me read it for myself. And some people, like a client I was working with today, I was kind of struggling with like, how does this dude learn? Because like he's not real good with like filling out workbooks, and like we seem to be getting stuck. And what I learned is that he learns by doing. So like in coaching sessions, in strategy sessions, if we are just doing it in the moment and getting the work done like in the moment, it like works beautifully. And I think that's the same. Like, it's funny because when we speak, I think our natural tendency is to speak the way we are. Like, I'm very much a feeler, right? And so, I mean, I'm kind of analytical, but like, I'm very much like a feeler, and that's the way we speak, right? But then we lose people that like don't like, I've heard speakers that just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on in stories. And I'm like, what's the point of this? This is a great story, but where are we going with this?
Where's the tangibles? So I have the funniest quick story about that. Way back in the day, I was a pharmaceutical rep. And so I was sitting there in the waiting room waiting to speak to the doctor. And there was a pharmaceutical rep there before me. And so she got up, and this doctor was a driver. He was an analytical person through and through. He likes stats. He likes proof, all this kind of stuff, right? And a lot of doctors are, but not all of them. And so she got up there and she walked up to him. This is the most embarrassing thing I've ever, it was secondhand embarrassment. I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm embarrassed. She pulls out a ukulele and starts singing about her drug to him. And he started looking around. He literally thought he was being pranked by his office, because he's like, there's no way somebody's like doing this with my personality. And so he actually just put his hand on her shoulder and said, please stop. No, I'm just going to ask you to leave. Then of course I went up next. And so I'm naturally an analytical person, but I tend to get a lot more into my feels when I'm talking. But with him, I was like, okay, I definitely know what tone. So it's not like I'm being inauthentic by shifting my tone a little bit, because I'm naturally a pretty soft person. But with him, I walked up and just did a little more of a masculine tone, just a tiny bit, just to match his thinker. And so I walked up and I said, well, that was interesting. And he goes, I thought I was being pranked. And I said, well, let me just respect your time. I'm just going to go through these really quick 3 things with you, and and let me know if you have any questions. Like, tell me what questions you have. So I went through those things, and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, thank you for understanding me. And he's not a feeler, but he put his hand on his heart and went there. So it was just kind of a fascinating, simple story to depict that she is a feeler, obviously, and she went and led with that like lovey-feely song and trying to get him to memorize. And I thought, gosh, that is such a weird way to do things. So anyways, that is just depicting how sometimes our personality
and someone that loves music might have like really appreciated that.
I'm sure there were some doctors who ate it up and they were like, yeah, keep going, So yeah, it's not for everybody though. And it's really important that we think through the audience. And this is social media videos. This is speaking from stage. We have to understand the audience. So let's just say we're doing a social media video. Maybe you don't have time to do something for every single personality type in every single video, but just make sure you're mixing up your content. Hitting a couple personality types per video is a very powerful thing to do. So,
and is it okay then? Is it okay to like say, okay, maybe one social media video like hits the feelers and the dreamers, but maybe one social media video hits like the thinkers? What was the other? The doers, the thinkers and the doers, for instance.
I would just alternate.
It's okay to like switch it up with like, it's funny because like I start thinking, your brand voice, your brand tone, like, is it okay to like kind of switch up?
As long as we ground, I always ground myself, and my clients ground themselves. I know yours do too, in who they really are. This is not about being inauthentic. This is not about trying to put on a hat that's not yours. It's just, we all have all 4 personality types. It just is a matter of, do we develop them? Which ones are dominant? And so all of us have, a thinker will see a little sweet 90-year-old lady on the street, and sometimes they'll say, well, hello, so we all have our feeler side of us.
Sure.
Or vice versa. So all that to say, it is just always make sure, and you're so good at this with your offer magician offer, is really understanding what the North Star is for their branding. Like, what does that brand stand for? And then you can
Sure.
say it in different ways. So just as long as it's grounded in your branding, then and your brand voice, yeah, absolutely. We can just expand and do little bits. So sometimes I would start with a story for the feelers, and I'd say, you know what I saw today? And then I would go into story time, right? And then maybe in the next video, I say, oh my goodness, you're not going to believe this. And I'll go right into a statistic and then some action items. And it's still me. It's still all me. It's just like, what am I speaking to in that moment?
Yeah.
Love
I
that
love
question.
that. I love that. And I feel like because we're talking about these speaking to all 4 personality types, I do feel like this is a good time to mention that Tiffany does have a resource for listeners called How to Speak to All 4 Personality Types. And for anyone who's listening, that will be in the show notes. It is free for Offer Mojo Show listeners. It's not free all the time, but it is for you guys. So I encourage you to, because this is something new for me. Like even, and I've been speaking like for a long time. It might have been something like I knew a long time ago, but I've certainly forgotten it. So this is like a really good refresher for me.
That's so perfect. And just a little side note too, for all of you listening, there's a coupon code area. Just type in all caps Lori, Lori.
Okay,
That's
got
your
it.
coupon
Yeah.
code
And
to
I
get
will,
perfect.
yes, I'll put that in the show notes for sure. So what I want to talk about now, I want to get into your profitable talk blueprint. And this, I mean, I think it's hard. I think sometimes people will speakers or people that put together presentations or whatever, they're not necessarily taking a strategic approach to their talk. They just develop all kinds of talks about like all kinds of different things. And for me, and you may disagree with me, but for me as an offer strategist, I want that talk to be aligned to your offers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because like otherwise, what's next step for that person that you're talking to? We always want to be asking that question. What's the next step? Like you don't want them to walk away and just say, wow, that was a really great talk. Like that was amazing. She was such a good speaker, and go on with your life. No, you want to know like, what's the next step? How can I work with this person? Right. So let's talk about first, I think it might be good to get like just a high level view, like a high level framework of like what the profitable talk blueprint is.
Nice and easy. It's a simple, the big picture is a very simple approach to structure a talk. And I'm going to give you just 2 real quick examples after I share it. So, but this is after years. I spoke on stages, but also so many different talks I did over the years ago. And I just would walk away with no sales. And it was like beating my head against the wall. Why was I wasting my time? I'm sure I impacted people, and that's the goal. But also I was doing it as a business and I wanted to make money as well so I could impact more people, right? So many times we're speaking and it's just not leading to something profitable for us. And then we're not being able to impact people, like I said. So the talk framework, it's 4 steps and then there's some granular steps in between. But number 1, you have to start with a hook. We have to start with something that draws our audience in within the first 30 seconds. And I'm going to give you an example of how that went from me getting mediocre engagement on social media to having some of my videos go viral, 3 million people. I'm going to show you exactly about what shifted. So I'll give that example in just a second. The second step is the content. And those are just, depending on how long you have, if you're doing a 60-second reel, don't necessarily have 3 points, but if you're doing a more expanded talk, no more than 3 content points, meaning the tips or the value you're giving. So, and that is where most entrepreneurs sit. They only focus on the content. They don't do the hook and then the next 2 pieces. So that's why there's no strategy behind it. So the third step is a transition. So you're going from speaking your content, and then you need to create a little smooth transition statement or a bridge to action. So it lofts it up for you to bring up your offer. So there has to be that. So then the fourth thing is a very strategic way to bring up your close. Like, how do you mention what your offer is? And how do you bring that up in a way that is extremely clear for your audience? A big mistake there is people don't talk about the tangibles. So they'll say, like, the audience is sitting there saying, that framework name sounds amazing. Oh, you're whatever framework, right?
Right.
That offer sounds amazing, but then they're missing, like, what is it? Like, is it an online course? Do you show up on Zoom calls? Like, sometimes they need the tangibles to understand and make action. Anything in a talk that leaves them still sitting in an objection that they're thinking or
Mm.
having a question unanswered, they will not pull out their credit card and buy. So there has to be a structured approach to that. So that's the big picture, is the hook, content, transition, and close. That's a big bird's eye view. And are you okay if I just jump into the hook part and how that shifted my...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I built a very large, I have 3 successful businesses. I have actually created them off of social media for the most part because I use the
Okay.
speaking strategy. However, back in the day when I was building my safety business, I built an audience of about 50,000 people. Well, as that was on the growth path, people were clicking on my videos and I was giving amazing safety tips. And then I had an offer. I sold online courses and some other things. And what I realized, nobody was buying my stuff. This was so many years ago now, but nobody was buying anything. And I thought, my gosh, and my tendency, my natural, this is why bottlenecks are important. My thought was, oh, my offer must not be good. Okay. Which I could have probably used you back then, but I thought my offer wasn't good. Okay. However, what I actually found out in this, and sometimes that is the case, but what I found out with this is I thought, okay, why is nobody buying it? So I went and looked at the insights on the videos and I saw 90+% of people were hopping off of my video after 3 seconds. So they weren't even hearing my tip. And they weren't even hearing my offer. So no tip, no offer. So that I can't endear myself to them. I can't position myself as an expert. And they weren't hearing my offer. So like I said, my tendency was like, oh, maybe my offer is not working. But really what happened in this case was that I was introducing myself. I went and thought, what am I doing in the first 3 seconds? And I was just introducing myself. I was saying something like, I'm Tiffany Armstrong, international safety expert, and I have a safety tip for you. That's it. That's all I was saying.
Right.
But when I switched and started with a hook instead, that's when all of a sudden my videos started taking off and a lot of them went viral. And it's because instead of sitting there starting with introducing myself, I started with a hook. And side note to that, 80 to 90% of people watch social media videos on silent. So sometimes a gesture at the beginning. So I do something like this or something like this. Any sort of movement will help people to think, oh, what's that? And it sparks enough curiosity. So just for social media videos, do the same framework. It's still the hook, maybe a one content piece, a transition, and a close for any type of sales forward videos, but then expand that same blueprint for your bigger talks, like an hour-long talk kind of thing. So hooks are so important. So important.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. Like the other thing I liked about what you said, and I'm not sure which tip, if it was in number 3 or 4, but you were talking about how you need to be very specific with the like what they get out of it. Like, and someone brought that up to me in a business meeting the other day that I didn't think about it. Like, I've been so focused on like the offer strategy, the offer development piece, the offer creation. Like I don't very often mention that I'm also like a certified funnel builder. Like it's like people are like, the girl was like, oh my God, like that's so important for people to know that you build funnels. And I'm like, yeah, like it's always just been like an upsell. Like I'll help you put your offer together and then I'll talk to you about like the fact that I will build your funnel, copy, design, tech, everything. Right. And like I guess I didn't think about it. Like that is actually a significant piece of the expertise that I bring is the offer funnel, like whatever, whether it's your lead magnet funnel, your webinar funnel, whatever, right? But I didn't think about it. I just was so focused on these little pieces and didn't think about like all of the pieces, like you said, the things that you could walk away with if you work with this person, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's important and people don't know unless we speak it, right?
Yeah.
And so having a very smooth, strategic way to speak it and have it not feel like we're just word vomiting on them, all of our credibility and all the things we do. There's very smooth ways to get that out and have your audience, no matter if it's 2 people or, 800 people, and just have them really get it. We just need them to get it. So that's why it's important to look through your whole talk and think, what are all the questions they might have about the tip I'm giving or tips? And what are all the questions that they might have about my offer, and then make sure you're answering those in the close and the transition. So it's so important. So I love that you brought that up. I love that.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions like on my mind. Like I know that, and I've learned this from like, do you remember the speaker? And this is so long ago, Patricia Fripp. Have you ever heard of her?
No, she's a tiny bell, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, she was older. Like this was back when I was doing, starting off with speaking, and I learned a lot from her. She was like professional, speaker, professional like trainer on becoming a professional speaker, how to structure your talks, all of that kind of thing. And she did talk very specifically about the importance of keeping it limited, like you said, like to 3 points. I think we all can have a tendency to overpack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so guilty of that. Like, I think to myself, like, if I could just like restructure like my talks to just be like, what are the 3 points? Like, what are the 3 highlights that I want to like, talk about when it comes to designing a hole-in-one offer? Obviously, there's more than 3, but like, we lose people then, right?
They don't like it. Yeah, they don't like it when we overwhelm our audiences, and
Mm-hmm.
I would just call that word vomiting. The thing is that comes from the best place in our hearts. Like we want to give them value. Like that's not a bad intention, right? However, when we overload them with information, and I am the most guilty person of that, that's how I used to function. I would have
Mm-hmm.
80 to 100 slides for a 20-minute talk. I mean, I did,
Mm.
blah, 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 you know what I mean? And then I
Right.
got, and my people were like, I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
So it's less is actually more, and your audience will actually appreciate that. So it's not that we're holding back because we're going to hook them and then sell them into this. That's not the type of business we're in. We're not manipulators, right? We are
Right.
going to help them have their paradigm shifts, give them some implementable things, and you are the natural next step for them to have them hire you or whoever you are out there with selling products or bringing on clients, and just really helping them to understand, have a nice, valuable paradigm shift, maybe take away some actionable items. But people don't like too much. This is an age we're in where we're just over consuming so much. So let's just
Oh
make
my
it
God.
peaceful. Make it
Yeah.
peaceful talk and let them walk away with clarity.
Yes, because our brains can only like hold so much information. And this is exactly what I teach when it comes to creating your offers, because we do the same thing with offers. We overpack offers and it's overwhelming. Someone can't finish it. They can't be successful because they give up halfway through. And we don't want our audience to do that when they're listening to us. And we don't want our clients to do that when they're engaged with our offer. So
Absolutely.
one other thing I wanted to ask about is, if let's say a person wants to use speaking as a way to get visibility, to sell into their offers, all of this kind of stuff, right? And they want to do like, virtual events or podcasts or maybe even speaking on stage. What do you recommend in terms of like the number of talks that a person should have or start with? Because I feel that sometimes too is like we can get like overpacked with, and or we're creating all these custom talks for people.
Yes, don't do that. Don't do that for years. It's just too much. And we don't need to put that kind of pressure on ourselves. Business really can be more simple than we make it. And sometimes we just overcomplicate the living heck out of it. And it just doesn't need to happen. So if you are thinking more keynote style, okay, so I'm just going to break this into 2 categories: social media videos, webinars, master classes, podcasts. We can obviously have a little variety there, but as far as keynotes go, have 1 keynote, maybe 2 keynotes, but just 1
Okay.
is perfect. So if you're kind of going in those 2 different directions. However, a couple things on that is I would suggest maybe, like, let's just say you want to start out in this strategy. Let's say you're an entrepreneur, you've never really taken this strategy, something very simple to just dip your toe in and test the market. Everything's a test in business. So you could say, hey, you know what? I have a master class and this is what I'm going to be going over, and this is where they can use your help to really understand how to present the offer at that. So let's just say you have a master class and you just say, hey, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, give them a little lead time to RSVP. You can say, I'm going to have this master class. Here's the main things you're going to learn at it, and then you invite people over to it. You could reach into other people's audiences and drive them to it. There's some amazing ways to fill your classes. And then you just have that one masterclass, test how that goes, and have a structure to that masterclass, and then pitch your offer at the end, which is a beautiful thing. And then let's just say you wanted to create 2 of those, maybe 3 at the most, and alternate them. Do one month, a different one, like number 2, the second month, number 3, and then just rinse and repeat. Think about business as a rinse and repeat cycle. You don't need to come up with brand new content all the time. And then from those 3 master classes, you could create 100 social media posts. I mean, honestly, there's so much that we can do with like repurposing our content. yeah, there's no need to go overboard with it. And then just speaking to the financial gain with this. A lot of people think they need to be talking constantly. And I will just tell you, and this is one of my favorite things about the speaking strategy, because the way we position ourselves is I did a cost analysis, because that's my analytical brain. I did a cost analysis. I
Okay.
went and I did 9 networking groups. I just wanted to test that, see the cost analysis of that. Then I spent 6 months going hard on social media, and I did very well at it, but it was draining my time and it was a burnout for me. And then I did my speaking, and I just did a cost analysis. One talk done well with a structure led me to more money from that one talk than I made in 6 months of social media and 9 networking groups. I mean, multiple, like 25 networking meetings a month. I made more money from that one talk than I did all of that combined, because
Wow.
there's a structure to it. And so this is where it's like, gosh, we don't have to juggle 8,000 balls in business. We just don't. We need to have a clear offer. We need to lift all the bottlenecks, and we have a structure to our talks. And that's pretty much, that can turn on the faucet on your business on a level that I've seen so many times. And it's a breeze. Business
Yeah.
can be
Wow.
really easy with this. It doesn't have to be hard.
That's pretty interesting cost comparison. Like, it kind of shows you, like, yikes, where I probably should be spending my time. And I think this is like a really natural lead into talking about these bottlenecks in our business, how we identify what actually is like holding us back, and what we actually should be doing to move the needle in our business. Cause I'm kind of tired of the busy work that does nothing
Yeah.
myself.
So many times we're busy, but busy with the wrong things. We need to
Yeah.
learn how to be busy with the right things and figure out what's working. So many times we get lost in social media land of, this coach is doing this. We get squirrel syndrome as entrepreneurs, and we just need to knock that off, right? We need to
Yeah.
test this, test this, test this. This is a winner. Go deeper in that. Now with that, test this. So I'm very analytical in the way I approach business, but all that to say, bottlenecks, we all have them. And I mean, I'm sure I have them too. And sometimes it takes an outside view to just come in and lift the curtain. But one of my favorite things to do is come in, lift the curtain on your business, and look at everything, your sales funnel, like you do, right? And then the offers, so that I would happily send people your way to really get that dialed in. Then we have the presentations, and then we have your branding and how you're presenting yourself. Sometimes I have worked with clients that they're kind of showing up looking like a mess. They're late to meetings, and all we do is get some of their mindset stuff out of the way. So where are they finding what's their visibility strategy? Where are they getting their leads? And really building a business that's in alignment with them. Sometimes it's a misalignment as a bottleneck.
Sure.
Because we see something another coach is doing, and all of a sudden we're just trying to do what they're doing, kind of thing. So I love to look under in every single corner and shine a light on it and be like, wow, this is going really, really well. All these things, these 3 things, you're bleeding money. There's holes in the bucket. And then what we do is we fill those holes in the bucket. We automate, or we just figure out what's the problem, and then we fix it. It's really true. So it's
Cool.
It's really fascinating how we have all those blind spots ourselves.
What would you say, if you were to identify the top 3 most common bottlenecks that you see in businesses, what would you say those are?
Good question. I have to sit with that for a second. One of the biggest mistakes for sure is just having their hands in too many things. So when they're trying to market, they're trying to do this whole full-fledged social media strategy, plus speaking, plus this, plus that. And they just are spreading themselves so thin, so they can't go deep on anything. Or, I mean, just a simple thing of having 6 social media platforms they're on and trying to manage them all. Just go deep with 1 or 2. I mean, we don't have to get crazy, right? And constantly learning. I think squirrel syndrome is another one, where it's like they put an offer out there, and I know you know this. People will put an offer out there and they test it, and they hear crickets at first, just for the first little bit, because the offer, this is what you help people do, is identify where the bottleneck is in the offer. So sometimes the offer is the issue. And so when they actually put it out in a proper way that's landing for people and the messaging lands, that's a beautiful thing. And then speaking of messaging, I would say that is the number one thing, because if people don't get down to the root of their messaging, and most people, I have an exercise I do called the benefit of the benefit, but most entrepreneurs, most of us, speak at a level 1 or 2 level. Like, it's a level 1 or 2 as far as depth goes. But where people actually pull their credit card out is speaking at a level 3 or 4. And so many times it's a messaging issue.
Yes.
Right? And I know that's what you do, because when you're helping people with offers, you have to address messaging, right? So
yes.
I love going into a messaging deep dive, because their presentations, their sales funnel, their offers, everything's going to stem from that. So it's just so powerful to understand what are people sitting around talking about. And really, so if you're thinking about your audience and people are sitting around, they're not thinking, I really need a visibility strategist. So I know they need
Right.
better visibility, but
Right.
they're not sitting around being like, just waking up, oh, visibility is my problem. Like they don't think like that. What are they sitting around talking about with their friends? Like what words are they using? All of that is part of the messaging. It's so important to
Yeah.
understand people at their core
Oh my
level.
God. I just went through this whole thing with one of my clients this morning, and he's so like advanced and so like high level, and he just keeps speaking in like these. Well, what I do is I help people regulate their nervous system. And I'm like, okay, I get that. You get that. But people are not walking around and saying, oh, I just really want to regulate my nervous system. You know, they're saying, oh my God, I'm so tired of feeling stressed out. Like anxiety, like I can't sleep at night. I feel so anxious. That's what they're talking about. They're not, I said, so we spent like literally an hour, like diving into just the, what are they saying is their problem? What's keeping them up at night? How are they talking about it? And what do they want? Like, what are they? Oh, they want to feel healthy. Again, deeper than that. Like, what do they really want, you know? So yeah, that is like and I would agree with you. That's probably the number one thing that most entrepreneurs struggle with is that messaging. Even myself, like I'm consider myself a messaging expert and I know how to drill down, but there's so many nuances with human beings and trying to understand where the human mind is at. And like you said too, like kind of back to like how we speak to them. There's the feelers and how do we like speak to them in a way that the feelers resonate. And but there's the doers and it's like there's a lot of nuance that goes into messaging and speaking and that whole thing.
There are, and that's why it's so important, like you do, is to go deep on messaging because it really is the stem of everything. And
Yes.
if it's not landing, all the other things. So a lot of times messaging is the bottleneck.
Yes.
And then once you get that dialed in and you apply it to everything, all of a sudden that faucet of finances come in, the income turns on, and it's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing like how much falls into place when you get the messaging. When you get clarity on the messaging, the offer becomes easy. Like putting together signature talks becomes easy. Crafting stories for, you know, and videos becomes easier. It's like now you know what you're talking about. Like it just, it's just so much easier.
It's so neat to not have your messaging clear and go do a talk, and then to have your messaging clear and go do a talk of any sort.
Yes.
And just watch the engagement change. Watch the purchases change. Same thing for social media. Social media messaging that's not landing, you're hearing crickets.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you put something out and you're like, holy cow, 1,000 people shared that. That's pretty awesome. You know what I mean? So it's very, very powerful.
Cool.
And I'm just going to say one real quick thing about that. A little caveat is AI is a beautiful thing, but you really do need to know how to use it. And so sometimes, so many times AI is just going to pump out bland, fall into the crowd kind of marketing. And so I know that you do very well at that. Something I do as well is we go deep and we hold AI
oh my God.
Fame,
like,
right?
I can't even tell you the arguments I have with AI. I've been writing website copy for one of my clients who's a dog trainer, and it has gone out to the internet and pulled content from all these other dog training websites. And all it keeps saying is the phrase, both ends of the leash. I provide training for both ends of the leash. And I'm like, I swear to God, if you use that phrase, both ends of the leash, one more time, we need something creative here. Like, this is not creative. Everyone's saying this. Yeah, right.
Copyright, yeah, we do have to have arguments with AI and just know how to prompt it properly. So it really, it's really cool to see bland, and then you give it some true prompts, and all of a sudden it's like where you should get goosebumps at your own messaging. Like once it comes, you should be like, that's it. So I know that's where you get your people to, and I love that about
and I build custom GPTs, and even with custom GPTs, when you've given it all of the information in the world, it can still get hung up and do bland, pull stuff from out on the internet. I mean, that's what its specialty is, right? But why we need humans
That's right. Yeah, there's humans behind AI is where the
Yes,
power comes from.
exactly.
Otherwise, we will mix in with the crowd, and that's just the
Yeah.
reality. So, yeah.
So I know that you do a business bottleneck assessment for entrepreneurs. Give us just a quick synopsis of what that looks like. And
Yeah.
I will definitely put this information in the show notes as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, it is a real straightforward appointment. It's 90 minutes. We hop on a Zoom call, and the questionnaire you fill out ahead of time gives me a lot of information. I do a whole bunch of research before I even hop on the call. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
look through in a lot of nooks and crannies before we even start. And then we just start lifting the hood. I have a very strategic, with my analytical brain, a very strategic way. I pull all of the things out of the client and
Mm-hmm.
just really help understand, okay, out of all these different areas that we can be searching, it's these three that are causing the biggest challenge and the biggest bottlenecks. And so,
Okay.
and then we start to develop a plan of how to fix those, is really what it is. There's so many times we just don't see clearly and we think something else is the problem and it is not even anywhere near the problem. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do, is just shine a light on that. So I do that for $197, and it's just
Nice.
a start, and I'll send you on your way. And if that's something that turns into something you want, my support with, obviously we can talk about a further client coaching relationship. But besides
Right.
that's one of my favorite things to do. I just absolutely love it.
I love it. Awesome.
Thanks.
Any other parting tips you want to leave with listeners today about just the power of speaking for visibility in their business?
Yes. I would just say, truly, thinking through what your goal is for the audience, not only to purchase your things, but really what transformation do you want them to lead with? What would
Mm-hmm.
have them feeling? We need to think about win-wins when we speak, right? Because
Sure.
it's not just about us. So, and they will pick up so quickly if you are just doing a sales pitch the whole time and not adding
Right.
value. So it's very important that we keep our focus, yes, on ourselves and our business goals, but that's going to just be worked into the structure. So
Mm-hmm.
really thinking about leading with our hearts, being authentic, what transformation do you want your audience to walk away with? And then structure your talk around that so they walk away. Don't give too much away. Don't give, like we talked
Sure.
about earlier, but really just think about, start by thinking, what is the transformation I want them to receive? And then start
Mm-hmm.
building your talk around that. That's just a nice, simple way to do it.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Anyone who wants to reach out to or just kind of see what Tiffany is all about, you can go to her website, which is tiffanycoaching.net, right?
Perfect.
Okay.
TiffanyCoaching.net. Nice and
tiffanycoaching.net.
simple.
Okay. So thank you again for being on the show today. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great episode.
I love this conversation. Thank you, Lori. Thank you for everything you bring to the world too. You are helping. This is the thing about offers. And when people come to you and you get those clean and clear for people, that's when you are one of the reasons they're being able to turn the faucet on their business and make life-changing money for themselves and their family. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything you bring to the world, and thank you for having me on today.
Of course. Thank you.